All right, so here's a word cloud showing every researcher that I've ever collaborated with the size of the text being the number of papers that I've collaborated with them. And I can get this information for any researcher just by typing their name and institution into a Python script. And what that script will do is it will actually look up that person on the Scopus database, find every single paper that they've ever written according to some criteria, like, the minimum and maximum year of publication. And then for every single one of those papers, it will analyze the co-author list and collect together the information for me so that I can generate a word cloud or do whatever I want with it. So I'm going to show you how to download the script, get it set up, and use it for your own purposes. Actually, the reason that I went down this rabbit hole is because one of my funding agencies requires me to list every single co-author that I've ever published with in the last 4 or 5 years, and to list the last time that I ever published with them. And because I have hundreds of co-authors, this sort of information would take literally hours to compile manually. And there are many researchers that do spend hours compiling this information. So over the years, I've been writing these little Python scripts and trying to, continually update them to incorporate the latest constraints and the latest types of information needed for these collaborator list forms. And it's been this technology versus bureaucracy fight where every year there's one extra requirement for the form and there's one update to my script. Now, in order to use the script, you basically need two things. The first thing is you need to have Python installed. And the second thing is that your institution needs to have a subscription to Scopus. Now, if you have those two things, the rest of it is pretty simple. The first thing you need to do is to just install the script that does all of the analysis. So you can get that script at gist.github.com/computron. And the one that you want is called coauthor list. There's some ones that look similar, but those are the older ones that don't do all the newer stuff. So coauthor list.py is the one that you want. I'll also put a link to this long string in the video description so that you can just directly click it. In order to download this script, you can either download the zip file and then unzip it by double clicking. You can also click raw and then hit save as. And then if you are saving this, just make sure to hit don't append to not append a text file extension to this. The next thing you need to do is to just install the bibliometrics library. Now, to install bibliometrics, you should just type pib install bibliometrics. All right, so now that we have bibliometrics installed, we can actually go ahead and run our script. And the first time you run our script, it's going to ask me for some information from the Scopus API. And we're going to cover exactly how to get that information, so don't worry when that message comes up. But to run the script, I'm going to type Python and then the name of the script, which is coauthorlist.py, the one that we downloaded. And then I want the information for myself, so I'm just going to put my own last name. I'm going to put my own first name. And then for my institution, one thing to make sure is that I put the institution in quotes. Because there are spaces separating the different words in my institution, the quotes just make sure that the command line parses it correctly. All right, so the first time I run this, it is going to ask me for an API key. And it's created this file in this configuration directory that it's going to store the API key in. So let's go over how we get our API key. To do that, we go to dev.elsevier.com. And then you can click this I want an API key button. And then sign in and just follow all the instructions needed in order to get an API key. And I've covered the steps in a previous video in case you get stuck. So if you do get stuck on this step, then you can go check that previous video. Once you have that API key, you can paste it here. So I'm just going to type random characters for now. And then it's going to ask me about this inst token. You can skip that. You can leave that one blank. And then if you have entered your API key incorrectly, like I did with this random characters, it's going to give you an error. And then you can go into this file here and fix that API key. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I've gone ahead and entered my API key for real. And I can go ahead and type the same command that I had before. And this time it shouldn't prompt me for my API key. So here it is, the script is working. It's first collected all the documents for my particular author names. There's 136 documents that it's collected for me. And then it's now getting information on every single co-author for every single one of these documents, collecting those together. So I've collaborated with 417 people over the years, and it's collecting the information from every single one of them. Okay, so it looks like this is about finished. And when it's done, it's going to print out every single one of my co-authors. It's going to print out their last name, first name, their institutions, the year that I last collaborated with them, and then also the number of times that I've collaborated with that particular co-author. Now there's a couple of extra things that we can do as well. So for example, if I only wanted co-authors in the last 5 years, I can type -- year min and 2021. And this should go pretty fast just because it's cached all the queries from before. And so now this time it doesn't need to look up everything on the API again. And this time there's going to be fewer co-authors and fewer documents because it's only been the last 4 years. And if we look at the dates of last collaboration for all these authors, they are all past 2021. Another thing we can do is we can add a year max. So let's just say we want year max 2023. And then we can also add an output file, and this should be a tab delimited file. So we're going to say my coauthors.tab. And this will be a file that we can open up in Microsoft Excel and then do other sorts of filtering or sorting as we would like. So if I run this, it's going to have created a file called my coauthors.tab. And this is a file that if I double click it, it should open up in Microsoft Excel. If that doesn't work, you can also open up Excel, do open, and then open the tab delimited file. And we can see we have the last name, first name, affiliation, last year of collaboration, and the number of times the person has collaborated with me, in this case from 2021 to 2023. And that's about it. So if you do run into trouble with the script, there are some troubleshooting notes in the script itself. For example, it reminds you to use quotes if there's a space, that you have a Scopus subscription, and that you might actually need to be on your institutional VPN in order to get this to work. If you have troubles with the author lookup, you can use the author ID flag. There is actually an author lookup tool on Scopus that allows you to look up an author ID. So for example, if I was having trouble with the author lookup, I can type my name and institution into this author lookup tool, and then get my Scopus ID right over here. And then the way that I would use that is that instead of putting my last name and first name, I would just do my author ID. So I hope this tutorial has been useful for you, and I will see you in the next video.